All right. Hi, everyone. Good evening or good morning, where some of you may be, or whatever time you might be watching this on a replay. Jared Napolitano, aka JNap here. I'm going to be covering Game 6, the top table for the 2023 Retro event. 2023 Retro League, Event 2, which is constructed Premiere-Endor format, so like mid-1999 to later in 99. It's going to be between Brad Kippel, aka Bkippel, who's going to be playing as Darkseid, and Dr. Torch, aka Paul Todd Feldman, who's going to be playing as Light. This should be a real good game. Both these players are really, really good at a lot of different formats. Brad plays a lot of Jaw 1 Open. Dr. Torch, not quite as much, but they both play a lot of different sealed formats and a lot of these constructed retro formats as well, and did really well. Paul won the Retro League last year. Brad did really well, but he didn't do the first two events. Maybe he just wasn't aware of them. But he did very well in the latter three events of the 2022 Retro League. So Paul won the first. Pretty sure he won the first event of this year too, which was Premiere to Hoth. No, he didn't. Of course, getting my late in the day, getting my retro events mixed up. John Carr won event 1. Of course, he defeated Paul in a crucial game. That was Premiere to Hoth. This is Premiere to Endor. So fast forward, what is that like? Just under 2 years in the Decipher era. The table's posted here by Brad. It looks like Paul was just finishing up a game in a casual game, so it looks like this is going to fire any minute now. Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching this, whether you do it live or on replay. Hopefully we have a very good competitive game. This is a funny game we have here with Star Wars CCG. Sometimes the games are really long and drawn out and competitive and go down to one card, and then sometimes something wild happens and the game could be over in 10 minutes. This is strength of schedule format, so it doesn't matter, if a player wins by 2 life force or 30. All that matters is if they win, which is different to how the game used to be played. I think it has a lot of benefits, one of which it doesn't draw out the games. Once the result's kind of inevitable, or basically inevitable, I should say, a player can concede and not feel like they have to fight for every life force across 6 events. So looks like I know Paul is aware this is supposed to fire soon, and it just fired. Okay, so I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about. And we have Ralltiir operations versus hidden base. So Brad is playing Dark as ROPS. I think I played against Brad last year in the Retro League. I think it was Premiere to Death Star 2. It might have been Premiere to through the Jabba's Palace sealed deck, and he beat me with ROPS. I think I was playing some mains deck, or maybe I was playing Prophet, but and he's a very quick player. He knows exactly what he's doing. So I remember he knows the deck inside and out. So I remember he made quick work of me in that game. And Dr. Torch is playing Hidden Base, which is kind of his trademark deck in these retro formats. And sometimes if you run into him in open formats, he also plays Hidden Base in those as well. So Brad gets out Executor Docking Bay from hand, Dagobah Cave from hand, Swamp from hand, so 3 opening locations, plus he'll grab another one here with the objective. I guess a big question here will be if the quote-unquote new card, Search and Destroy, is in Brad's deck, which I would fully expect it to be. Might just be a question of how quickly he can find it. That's assuming Paul's playing a pretty heavy space-only Hidden Base deck, which Hidden Base can go in a couple different directions. It could be mains, or it can be, X-Wing Swarm, lots of X-Wings. You get some retrieval with all wings report in, and the like. So pretty standard turn there in that Brad gets out a bunch of locations and draws up a few. Dr. Torch is going to deploy a system from reserve deck. Ralltiir operations just kind of whittles down the opponent with drains of 1. Maybe he has, I think, Overseeing It Personally is the card that adds to force drains on Ralltiir. I think it sites adjacent to the Emperor is how that works. But may or may not be playing that, but it's just such a strong deck in shutting down the opponent's force drains, making them -1, that As Paul drops Tatooine from hand, Korlag from reserve deck, Yavin 4 from hand. Wow, so lots of locations out very early here. Do or do not. So he has both anti-sense alter effects on the table. Of course, nowadays we would see that in the form of shields typically. A cool thing, there was an errata, I guess in the PC era, to hidden base where the hidden base indicator, so basically the second copy of your system, it doesn't count as one of your 60 cards, which is neat. You get an extra card back. So that's kind of like a retroactively applied errata for these games on GEMP here. And if you're not familiar, this is GEMP, GEMP, play.starwarsccg.org, and it is an awesome thing for this very complicated game, and allows players to play sealed formats and retro formats, and of course open formats, casual levels, competitive levels with anybody, any time of day, for free. It's awesome. So a couple more locations get thrown out here. Brad puts out the Forest from reserve deck and the Spaceport Docking Bay with IAO, Imperial Arrest Order. It's interesting seeing, because we're kind of doing these as like a time warp format. Not literally every single expansion, but like I said, the first event is Premiere to Hoth, second event Premiere-Endor, which was voted on based on the survey to introduce this one. It wasn't done last year. Premiere to Death Star 2 as Oberk, and Tempest 1 are here. The Jungle, of course, attrition's -2. So if Paul did have some mains and he wanted to attack, he would have to draw 6 to make anything go lost. Oberk is forfeit 5 with Imperial Arrest Order. Paul's going to play Tunnel Vision here. But yeah, the third event in the year, just like last year, will be Premiere to Death Star 2. Fourth event will be premiered through Jabba's Palace Seal deck, which is only one expansion later, we'll say, even though it's like a premium set. But it did have a pretty significant change, and that's kind of like the peak time, I think, that people like the retro formats, is right in that, I guess it would be like mid to late 2000 or early 2001 area, before a lot of the overpowered Episode 1 cards came out. And then the final event's going to be Premiere Reflections 2, but this year we have a spin where we're banning Agents of Black Sun and Watch Your Step, which should open up the meta a lot, because those decks are very, very strong in that format, and it's pretty much all you'll see if there was not a ban list. Alright, so back to the action here. More locations getting thrown out here. So Paul puts out Kessel from reserve deck, Kifex from hand, Red Squadron wiring for deploy -2 to Yavin 4. So that's only 3. And a Gold Squadron wiring. Interesting. So not like your cheap Premiere versions of these. And traffic control. Paul, I think, has this in every single deck that he plays. Or sometimes he'll play open. He'll use Forlom with Concussion Rifle V, which allows him to cycle cards. So he is a big fan of that mechanic in all formats. And then Paul's going to move to Ralltiir. So that's his line here is, I guess, take Ralltiir, because now he's going to make Brad, in order to flip, dedicate something to the system, and potentially has like a barrier. So Brad has to be careful not to just deploy a ship with the anticipation of moving away, because it might get stuck there. If he does that with the intent to flip, he might want to make sure he has like a GIC. It's drained for 1 here. No battle plan or battle order out yet. It's a hit, cancels the drain. Pretty cool card, still played nowadays, 20-some years later. Cancel a force drain on a site related to a system you control. So cancels that drain. And Brad's going to put the ATST pilot, again, a quote-unquote new card for this format, since it's the Endor expansion. This is Premiere through Endor, so this is kind of where the layering on happened. Sorry, so the Dreadnought goes to Ralltiir. There is no barrier, so Brad's going to put Lieutenant Commander Arden and flip, because Imperials control 3 Ralltiir locations, and opponent controls none. So he's going to spend 2 force to put DS612 up. He still has 5 force to work with here. Probably going to be some type of consolidation here. But at the same time, with ROPS, they basically play a bunch of barriers a lot, and probably some GICs, and it can play pretty loosey-goosey on the ground, and you have these reacting ATSDs, from hand sometimes, with like Tempest Scout 6 deploys only 1 as a react from hand. But it looks like the ATSD pilot's going to board here. Brad is a big fan of foils, as we see here. Lots of his cards are foils, as am I. I think some of his decks are like 60 for 60 in terms of foils. But Brad, very, very good player across many formats. Like he was in Champions League, always does really well in the Jawa events. He's placed in the Online Championship Series. I think he's made that top 16 2 or 3 times. And him, like the joke was him and Dylan is the screen name, aka Timo. They just do really, really well in the sealed formats as well, especially like all the Jedi. So, very versatile player. All right, so he just boards the Tempest Scout 5 with the ATSC pilot. Does not save any force for like Imperial Barrier. Maybe he's just daring or making a bet that Paul does not have a viable ground force in this deck. Ran away with the Dreadnought as a miss there at the end of that turn over to Core Lag. So now, Paul cannot drain for anything at Ralltiir because all of his force drains are -1 with the flipped ROPS objective. Move me over here. R2D2 comes down. Pretty fun card in that basically anytime opponent draws a Destiny, you get to do stuff, whether it's activate force if they draw 1 to 3, or draw a card if they draw 4 to 6. And of course it's optional, so you're never forced to do it. You may activate or you may draw a top card. Alright, so Red Squadron Y-Wing, and we get a Landing Claw. Red Squadron Y-Wing goes to Yavin 4, Landing Claw on here. You know, nowadays there's a Ralltiir Ops virtual objective that only subtracts 1 from force drains at light sides locations. So if you basically, there's an incentive to go invade Ralltiir because at least your drains are not going to get reduced. Whereas, as we see here, like that drain was reduced at any location, and it's going to be really hard for Paul probably to flip Brad back. So he's probably taking the line of, again, I'm kind of betting as well that Paul doesn't have a ton of ground in this deck. So Paul might just be conceding, hey, he's going to be flipped the whole game because I'm never going to be able to control 2 locations from Ralltiir and flip him back, so it's not worth the effort. But now he does move his 2 Y-Wings, or X-Wings rather, over to Kessel, so that's going to be a drain of 2, which is not nothing. And he's going to attach here with the Landing Claw, and both players activating Healthy Force, both players with lots of cards face down, still early in the game here. Dr. Torch can flip at any time because he has 5 Battleground systems out, which was the Hidden Base errata. You can only flip after you deploy 5 Battleground systems. So he could flip and then cancel the force drains for every system he controls. But of course, the downside of flipping too soon is you're giving Darkseid a chance to start probing. So he might want to line up some ability to try to kick Brad out of space, or yeah, because you don't want to just have your objective probed immediately, or your hidden base probed immediately. He what was I gonna say? Oh, that's what I was gonna say. So I'm sure that Dr. Torch probably has some forms of retrieval in here. Although he doesn't have, like, a lot of times you'll see like the Premiere X-Wings, and you deploy like 10 of them, and then you play all wings report in, and you retrieve 10 force at some point later in the game. But you know, Paul plays this hidden base deck a ton. I'm sure he's always very thoughtful on exactly when and how he's going to flip that objective. Alright, so there's Search and Destroy. That's a key card in this matchup because Lightside does not occupy a battleground site with a character of Destiny less than 4, they lose 1 force every draw phase. So that is going to add up. That's like basically Visage of the Emperor, which of course came out in the previous expansion here, Special Edition, and was very powerful. It's always powerful in the retro formats, I feel. One thing to note here is he has R2D2 out as Search and Destroy pings, and Brad spreads out a little bit more on the ground. He can play We're Doomed at some point because he has R2 or C3PO on the table, and that can be really big, especially against a deck like ROPS that has lots of little damage. Alright, so now he flips during Brad's draw phase. So now Brad's going to have to pay 1 for each card he draws, which, you know, presumably, you know, Brad, if he's probably going to want to probe the system at some point, but maybe he's going to search for some more ships, and he might have a slightly harder time finding those ships now that he's got to basically, he has to actually pay 1 to draw each card. But Dr. Torch to take the ping there. It could be worse, which is you know, he might have 2 or 3 copies of that. Always got to be on the lookout here for what was I going to say? Oh, It's Worse. So. All right, so this is rated 2. Now, it was going to be 2. I'm wondering why Brad put resistance out. Because it's not really going to kick in unless he's just trying to anticipate numbers, which isn't a bad idea. Because this is while you occupy 3 battlegrounds, you lose more than 2 force to each force trainer insert card. So, as Admiral Ozzel in Secret Plans could be a key card that he lost. Like, if he didn't deploy resistance, on Dr. Torch's turn, he could have deployed a couple more droids and have, like, an insert and never tell me the odds. And then Brad would have had to be very careful how much he activates. So probably better to just preempt, not get cute with it and hold back resistance until it actually would impact a drain, or until after he sees a number. Looks like Dr. Torch loses a second Grimtosh. He's lost 2 now. Deploys X-Wing laser cannon on his X-Wing, but you know that might anticipate like a Vader shuttle or like a Zuckuss and Mist Hunter. It's not able to target capital ships, so it can't hit a Dreadnought or like a Boskin Houndstooth or any Star Destroyer. Alright, so it passes the turn back to Brad on his turn 5 here. He's going to use the 2 force to look for a card, which is probably very handy when it's a little harder for you to draw cards than typical. But he only has 2 cards left, or not 2, 9 cards left in his reserve deck to pick from. But, of course, well worth it to activate all that. And now Dr. Torch is going to play Tunnel Vision on Brad's turn. It's interesting. Wonder if he's looking for something very specific. He'll be able to cancel 2 of these drains of 1, which, of course, there's 5 in total. So it looks like Dr. Torch is going to take a drain of 3 here. Oh, no, he's only going to be able to cancel 1 because he only controls 1 battleground system. Right? Or is it any system? You may cancel an opponent's force drain for each battleground system. Okay. Limit twice per turn. Nowadays, there's, even through the Decipher era too, they've gradually created more and more cards that prevent your opponent from modifying or canceling your force drains, so protect them a little bit better. So you're not just like, oh crap, ROPS is reduce my force drains. I can't do anything about it. Like Underworld Contacts is an example of a card that's probably played in like the Prophet objective, which I don't think Prophet's pulled into this. It came a little after as a premium. So Brad's doing this damage here. So Torch tosses Kashyyyk from hand, Wedge Antilles from hand, the Grabber, aka what are you trying to push on us, from hand. And he's going to probe Korlag, and he hits it on the first try. Wow. So Brad is 1 of 1 in probing, which now is going to place Dr. Torch's objective out of play. Brad gets that probe card back on his use pile. And that's good for Brad. It takes away the objective from Dr. Torch. But I've seen some pretty resilient games from Dr. Torch. There's some games where I'm like, whoa, that's really bad. And then he somehow finds a way. So I'm sure he plays a lot of games in this format. So he is, I'm sure, very familiar with all the different lines of play to take. As Lieutenant Cabell comes out here against Boskin Houndstooth. But right now this looks pretty good for Brad. So John Carr won the first event. Each winner of the 5 events gets an uncut sheet. Has search and destroy pings here. The PC has a lot of uncut sheets, and they are great prize support. We use them for a couple other reasons as well, but I could pull that up real quick just to confirm. I think it's, let's see, what's the quickest way to get there? If I go here real quick, just in case anyone was curious, as we'll go back to the action really quickly. Surprise support, Retro League, Event 2, Lightside-Endor Uncommon is going to be the sheet that goes to the winner. And what we also set up too, like if the same person wins multiple of the 5 events, they it passes down, so it'll go second place. And the winner of the entire league this year gets a rare uncut sheet. It's Premier Black Border, which is a pretty sweet, and a trophy. So if you are watching this and you're like, oh wow, this is really cool, I'd like to sign up. There's 3 more events. This is April 19th, so and Brad loses his Kashyyyk from hand and an Altar from hand. Just go to forum.starwarsccg.org. I would just do a Control F for Retro, and you'll find the Retro Gemp League, and in that forum is all the information for each event. This event's in its final week. There'll be a little break for the annual online Retro event, which is like a standalone throwback event. It's Premiere to Special Edition. It's for charity. I'll plug that a little bit later. I'll show all the information as the landing claw detaches here. And then Event 3, Premiere to Death Star 2, will resume probably, I think Steve Sanders, who's the tournament director for all the events, league organizer, we'll say, his proper title. I think it's going to start in early June, is the Premiere to Death Star 2. So plenty of time to, read up on all the details and prizes and sign up. It's $10 for the league, whether you play in one event or whether you play in all 5. So yeah, all right, so Wedge Antilles goes out, Tan of 4. That looks like a second Wedge, so that makes sense. Why he tossed Wedge from hand. In comes and Never Tell Me the Odds. But Resistance is big because Brad is easily on, more than 3 plus battlegrounds, and it doesn't look like he's going to get booted off them anytime soon. So in effect, Dr. Torch is losing 1 card in Never Tell Me the Odds to make Brad lose 2 cards. So I guess it's a +1. That's good. But not obviously maximized because of Resistance, which is another card that eventually became a shield, so you don't have to pack it in every main deck. So he just has Wedge and R2, so he's at 9 versus Torch, who's at, not that much lower. He probably has like a 2, so it's like 9 to 6. No, 9 to 8. Yeah, these are all Destiny 3 guys. So he's not even, Resistance isn't even going to kick in right now. So unless Dr. Torch finds another character, the Never Tell Me the Odds is going to kick in for 1. It's going to be a total of 9 to 8. No, I can't do math. 2, 2, 3. 9 to 7. Okay, all right, so it's basically a wash. My bad. All right, out of commission places Admiral Ozzel out of play as we're at now the end of Dr. Torch's turn. Only 4 cards in Brad's lost pile. Looks like Life Force counts 14, 28 to 34. So Dr. Torch is down 6, and he's about to take 5 more damage. Never Tell Me the Odds pops. I guess Brad's going to eat 2 here. So that helps chip away at the differential here. And now we have this funny setup with Gemp, and how we have these like 2 different reserve decks. That happens when there's inserts. Alright, so Brad's going to search for a card, spend 2 4s. Maybe sometimes if I refresh, that fixes it. Yeah, okay. Alright, so we're back to actually seeing, not seeing double in Brad's face down cards here. Alright, so Brad grabs a card from the 6 potential options. If I was him, I'd probably make sure I have a grabber, because it's very possible We're Doomed is coming out at some point. Ooh, Surprise Assault. To cancel a 4 strain at the forest, so power 2. Brad's going to grab it. Speak of the devil, I just mentioned having a grabber. So that is going to make Dr. Torch have to pay more, but I don't know. It's a lost interrupt, so matter of how much it recurs. So that's 5, so that's going to cause Brad to lose 3 force. So that again chips away the lead of Brad. And Brad's going to toss Coruscant from hand, Blast Door Controls from hand, and ATST Pilot also from hand. So Landing Claw attaches to the Boskin Houndstooth, which of course is a capital ship, but it deploys and moves like a starfighter. So it can like land at exterior sites. It can go into like clouds and other sectors. Alright, now Brad does another drain of 1. So in theory, Dr. Torch could play another Surprise Assault. He'd have to stack it, first stack it, then pay 2, then pay 1 for the actual Surprise Assault cost. So that goes through, and Dr. Torch loses an R2-D2 from hand, Swamp Drain, R2-X2 from hand, another High Destiny Droid that contributes to the numbers, And also 8D8, another high destiny droid. Yeah, so these guys aren't going to be too helpful with resistance and effect. Huge card for Brad this game. Resistance and search and destroy, and of course, with this function to, during your control phase, use 2 force and take any one card, he can find the key cards that he needs. So I wouldn't be surprised if those are the cards he grabbed early on, or just made it a point to find them. Alright, now comes Oppressive Enforcement, which will enable him to deploy any immediate effects like another copy of Hell to Pay for free instead of spending 3 force. Doesn't look like Paul's going to be playing much Sense Alter since he has both anti-Sense Alter effects himself. So that part of Oppressive Enforcement won't kick in, but it will make his Dreadnoughts Destiny 4. Any Star Destroyer will be like a Destiny +1. As we have Corporal Draylosin and Sergeant Irol both go on the Dreadnought. Draylosin adds a Battle Destiny with Irol, but only at a site. This was actually a question in the Gem chat yesterday, I saw. Someone was wondering why he wasn't adding. So they're not going to add a Battle Destiny, but it looks like Brad's taking the approach here of, maybe not, we'll see. Maybe he's going to ship dock. I was going to say, it looks like he's taking the approach of like, let me just not get blown out in space, and I'm probably going to win this game. So he's going to move Boskin Houndstooth over to Yavin 4. Search and destroy pings. So Brad just moved his Dreadnought with the 3 pilots on it over to Tatooine. So Dr. Torch is threatening a drain. Looks like 2 and 1 because they're -1 each. No battle plan or battle order out. I'm sure both players. I would bet that Brad probably has it in his deck. That can be a real key card to drop late in games. Because a lot of times if your opponent has like lots of little force drains, and if they're not satisfying it, it basically just ends the game because they can't keep up when the force start dwindling. Just pay 3 force for like a drain of 1. It's just a brutal resource trade. All right, Dr. Torch loses a Rebel Barrier from hand to the Search and Destroy at the end of Brad's turn, and Brad's going to draw a couple more cards. And save 1 and pass the turn. Alright, so this is now the start of Dr. Torch's 6th turn. Let's see what tricks he might have, because he's down only 2 in life force, but he's only threatening 3 damage a turn, and now he's actually going to be up 1? Is that right? It's kind of sneaky sometimes. The more cards you're putting on the table, and in some effect, they're actually like losing a card, but of course, the hope is that over the long run of the game, that one card that you're dedicating to the table pays for itself, and then more. Which, of course, like each of these numpties on these sites are draining for 1 every turn, so they're obviously well worth it. But sometimes at the fringes, at the margins, that those decisions make sense. And I think both players are playing very tight. They're not like over deploying. This might be an over deploy, but he knows that there might be some base weapons tricks or some wild stuff going on here with so Brad's at the time being a little conservative with his Dreadnought, but otherwise he doesn't have any extra cards on the table. I would say all the locations made sense for activation early on. As Paul deploys a pretty key card here in Rebel Fleet, this is going to allow him to cancel a force drain each turn by putting a non-unique Starfighter there. So he's basically going to dedicate a card there and then cancel one of these drains of 1, or maybe he cancels this drain of 2 here is what he wants to do. Brad lost Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith from hand, Blizzard 2 from hand, and Lieutenant Arnett from hand. Arnett's a badass because he does not allow the opponent to react to or from the same site. He is an Arcona assassin. He could end the game real quick against an Arcona. Alright, so we see some ground here from Paul. Luke with lightsaber comes down to the jungle against Oberk. So let's see if Brad has a force he can react here with Tempest Scout 5. We haven't had any battles yet this game, but Brad's Battle Destiny is going to be plus a bunch because of the third function of the flip side, right? So it's -1 to drains. Each rebel's deploy +2, so Luke costs 7. You also get to pull the card, and you also get to add to your Battle Destiny. So it does 4 pretty sweet things. And but Paul just passes through to his turn. He's going to move the Red Squadron X-Wing. But Brad plays Masterful Move, grabs a Monarch. So some interesting things that could happen here. So Torch is, he has an out here to try to flip Ralltiir operations back. It would have been silly for him just to battle into Oberk, just to have Brad react. Maybe Oberk dies and maybe the ATSD pilot dies. He would be forfeit 4, I believe. Adds 1 to his forfeit, but I think Paul activated all his force, so he wasn't going to battle at any point. But he's probably hoping to maybe, if Brad does, it probably wouldn't be ideal for Brad to battle at the jungle, because it's very possible that that's a way for Dr. Torch to flip Ralltiir operations back to the 0 side. And then, what was the other thing I was going to... Oh, so, and he also turns off Search and Destroy, was what I was going to say. So that's big for Paul. Probably really something he has to do. He can't afford to just keep taking 2 every single cycle, I think. So you can try to, kill 2 birds with 1 stone here to flip ROPS back. Also shut off Search and Destroy for a couple turns. This is interesting. Paul's going to play Organized Attack to lose 4. So effectively he's losing 2 cards here with the Interrupt. That's the loss function. Oof. So he lost Organized Attack. He lost the signal from hand to upload 1 non-unique ship, which he can then use to cancel a drain of 1. I think he was probably hoping to find more than 1 ship there. And now he's going to play a Monarch Lost, and this could be interesting. Gold's... Let's see, it's a hit, surprise assault, how do you get this mess? Never tell me the odds. So he's going to not get anything, I think? Yeah, so he whiffs. But that's an important play, I think, at this point of the game, because he's getting good information. So he sees Spiral, which can react to a battle. He sees Power Pivot, so that might be a weapon trick. Another surprise assault, although Paul doesn't have enough force to play it. Hyper Escape, so he can run away. Another another Never Tell Me the Odds, but... no, we're doomed. So maybe that's been eluding Paul in this game, or maybe he doesn't have it, but there's the It's a Hit. That'll cancel that drain. And that's going to be grabbed by Brad. Probably a good grab. The only thing I would say is he does not want to get burned by We're Doomed here. If Paul does find that somehow, it would have to be one of the 8 cards face down, and then Paul would have to find a way to dig it out. So it might be out of the question for this game. So maybe Brad, it's probably a good grab there. Maybe it could be worse, but again, that at least gets expensive, and all of Brad's drains are or not all, most are just drains of 1, so that mitigates, and I keep forgetting, so this is where he'll put the Gold Squadron wiring onto Rebel Fleet. So yeah, so it's not, I think I was doing the math earlier on Organized Attack. He did lose 2 cards to get the Y-Wing that can cancel a drain of 2. Hopefully, for his sake, he gets some utility out of this Y-Wing, which he can deploy a couple places. Alright, so Tempest got 6, goes down to the swamp. And yeah, if I was Brad, I'd probably just move the Oberk away. Although, wait a minute, if he does that, then they eject a flip, so no, maybe I wouldn't do that. Yeah, he moves Tempest 1 over, he's going to board Oberk, hop in, and now, he's going to go for the... because he tracked the masterful move? Yeah, okay, yeah, so Luke's dead. Yeah, so he used the 1 force, played a masterful move, activated all but 2, but he pulled the card, right, in his control phase. So he pulled the 1 card that he spent, so he knew the only card left in his reserve deck. Yeah, he knew the only card left in his reserve deck was masterful move, so well played by Brad there to get rid of Luke. So now Search and Destroy is back online, and this looks really good for Brad here. And it looks like Brad's going to win the event. He's going to block the drain here at Kessel. Again, that Monarch was good because it gave him the information. Sometimes you play the Lost Monarch, you don't get any duplicates, and you're like, oh, this is a waste of 4 force and a card that goes to the Lost pile. But, he just wanted to make sure there was no funny business and making sure he wasn't going to get blindsided by anything. So that was a good use of Monarch late in the game here. And now he's just consolidating a Kessel, blocking that drain at 2, and not taking any chances here. Again, he's got plenty of forfeit here. Dr. Torch does have a Power Pivot in his hand, and he has a weapon now. But, he's still got plenty of forfeit here. All these pilots are forfeit +2 because of Imperial Rust Order. Brad draws up, and both players have 5 cards in hand, and Brad is up 6 force and cards down, and he is threatening 4 drains of 1 versus Dr. Torch threatening 1 drain of 1 right now at Kiffix because it's -1, of course, as it's been for most of the game. All of Dr. Torch's drains. Alright, so Brad tosses Commander Igar from hand. Drains for 0, because why not? Sometimes there's benefits to draining for 0. So people shouldn't always just assume, oh, let me not do anything. Like, for example, in these older formats, Jabba the Hutt allows you to activate 1 force every time you force drain with an alien. So sometimes even though you might drain for 0, but, like, let's say you're at the audience chamber and the opponent put projection of a Skywalker there to make the drain -1, you can still drain there and activate a force. And there's a handful of cards like that. You also want to be careful, though. Sometimes you drain for 0 just because you're like, why not? And your opponent might play counter assault or surprise assault. And then you're going to wish there was 0. Or in that case, there might have been 0 upside and all downside. All right, so Dr. Torch shuffles, runs away. His X-Wing that has the cannon loses Spiral from hand. And this looks like Dr. Torch drawing, plays out of commission, so he's not going to concede here, it looks like, but this looks like it's definitely going to be Brad's game. And the way this event worked out, these are the only 2 5-0s. I think I mentioned that earlier, but they're the only 2 5-0s, and they conveniently, for purposes of settling an undisputed champion, we'll say, they played opposite sides in Game 5, so they matched up. If they both played the same side and both won, it gets a little trickier on who exactly is going to win. It might come down to a tiebreaker, or would come down to a tiebreaker if you still end up with 2 6-0s. And the way we have the league set up this year, that they would play each other in a 1-game playoff, with the person with the higher strength of schedule picking the side that they would play. If there were, I think, like, if possible, you could have a bunch of 5-1s. I think then still we would want people to come down. But in this case, it's going to be the only 6-0. All right, so Dr. Torch is going to spend the force on the surprise assault. That's what happened in Event 1, too, where we only had 1 6-0. All right, so this is going to force Brad to lose 2 force, which doesn't mind doing, just get those surprise assaults out of the equation here. But this event started, I think it had 57 players. Yeah, there's 29 tables. So 28 plus 1 buy table, which is great turnout. I think the first event was in the low 50s, maybe mid 50s. And we only had 1 person drop, I think, in the final game of this event. So great staying power by everyone in the league. Dr. Torch loses X-Wing cannon from hand, battle plan from hand. Yeah, well, that would just work against him. At this point, gold leader, gold 1 from hand. He now has a total of 7 force. Brad is at 16. So yeah, the turnout's been really good, and I've been really impressed with how diligent everyone's been about playing their games on time, not dropping. Of course, we have lots of incentives in place for people to play, like all the prizes. I'll encourage people to play out, all the events I'll play out all the games in each event. All right, Search and Destroy causes Dr. Torch to lose Malos from reserve deck. Bkippel is just going to draw now. He doesn't move anybody. Passes the turn. This is 16-6. I don't really see a way for Dr. Torch here, because it looks like after this turn, best case scenario, he has 1 force left. I mean, unless he's going to walk into a beatdown, which I don't think he's going to do. Maybe 2 force left, I should say, if he's going to block them, but then I don't know what where the game plan from there. So interesting. So Brad's running 2 oppressive enforcements. Loses 1 from hand. Of course, we saw a few Twilight Advisors. So that's obviously a key card in this format to find your effects. And another ping for Search and Destroy. Add a commission from Force Pile. Torch recirculates. Never Tell Me the Odds pops, and Brad has the Torture to cancel it upon reveal. Between Torture and Resistance, Brad is anticipating the numbers, which is a pro play. Destiny 6 cancels it if it was inserted or revealed. Dr. Torch says, good game, congrats. Brad says, thanks, good game. So yeah, really well played by Brad. Definitely some crafty stuff here from Dr. Torch. But Brad's going to be the lone 6-0 for the event, and he's going to be the winner. And he gets the uncut sheet of Endor. So once this wraps up, I'll have a few just like housekeeping items. Transmissions terminated. Brad, looks like so search and destroy will ping here. Oh, interesting. Dr. Torch, I just realized that he landed the Red Squadron X-Wing there. So you get his battle and then let you kill me. So Dr. Torch wants him to finish it off. No concede. So he's going to get hyper escape. Interesting. All right, so he's going to run away. Use the 1 force. Runs away to Kessel. Now, presumably he's in a battle here, but he's not going to be able to draw a battle destiny, so this is just going to be lose the X-Wing, and that covers because it's forfeit 4, down 3 in power. Or maybe nope, he's not going to peel. Search and destroy is going to ping for 1. But yeah, I'll have a few just kind of housekeeping announcements here at the end. So about upcoming events. Alright, bad feeling have I goes from hand to the train. I guess Dr. Torch might want to know. Okay, what was the differential of this game? Just to kind of know, in retrospect, how close was it? Just for his sake. Alright, so we have a battle here. Power 11. Brad's going to draw a 4. That's going to be +3 because of his objectives. That's 7. So that's going to kill R2 and the Y-Wing. Yeah. And Dr. Torch just peels. Okay, so that's it. So it is now formally over. Congrats to Brad for winning. Thanks to both players for coordinating with us as the stream team and organizing. It was good to have these covered, whether live or by replay, but there's some perks to both of them, both methods of covering. So, all right, so congrats to both players. Let me go back to the lobby here. So that is going to be what settles. Of course, there's other games and other standings to shake out. That was just table 1. But being the league, there'll be incentives for players to do well over the full 5-event slate. Cumulative standings at the end of the year will dictate extra prizes. Players who are very diligent for all 5 events get something. Players who are diligent and play well get extra prizes. So always something to play for is what we shoot for. All right, so that's that. Let me just plug. We have the annual online retro event coming up, Premiere Special Edition. This is for a special cause. This was Andy Talaga's brainchild, which was a great idea. And we are raising money for charity. All of the registration fees are going to be 100% passed on. And the special connection that we have with Sean Valdez, who tragically passed away a long time ago during the Decipher era. But he will be, forever tied to the game. But we'll make it to the childcancerfund.org is the website. The Child Cancer Fund is the organization. So last year we did a Father's Day charity event for research and prevention of prostate cancer and treatment of it. So that was a cause last year. We're going to do this one this year for this retro style event. We have 35 players signed up. The prizes are pretty cool. They're down here. The grand prize, actually prizes are over here. Grand prize is a Coruscant Lightside uncut sheet, which is pictured here. Pretty cool stuff. There's also going to be hollow stickers and mugs randomly given away, and rare cards for every player. Some digital prizes, poker chips, foil AI slip of Luke Skywalker V. Is this going to work here? Let's see. No. Why did it not work? It's a really cool AI of a virtual card. One of the very, very first virtual cards from way back in 2002. And then, of course, there's prizes. There's going to be a deck box for second place. a couple sealed packs for people who do really well, and some of the other performance poker chips. So really cool event. It's going to kick off. I always get this mixed up if it's the 23rd or the 24th. It is the 23rd. So that is going to be 20, 21, 22, 23. So that's going to be Saturday at, I guess, game time is 8 p.m. So 8 p.m. Saturday, April 22nd, you can technically start playing games in the league. Once you register, include all the directions are in here, but you get added to the league, you play the games in the league, people that do really well, the top 8 cut, then they'll do like a match play square off to determine the ultimate winner. So it'll be fun, and we'll do some coverage on those games later in the event. I'm going to play in it, of course. Yeah, great. So plug that. Another thing I wanted to do here, as we were talking about prize support, just as like a, so kind of unrelated to retro stuff, so maybe I'll even chop this off the end. But I wanted to do the random winner. So we had an event this past weekend that was an open Swiss event, 4 games plus 1 event. We had a couple deck boxes on the line. First and second place received an Ahsoka Tano deck box. And there's a bunch of random prizes for people. So what I want to do is do like a random number generator, but do it, in a public way so that, it's very clear. But if I just, so we'll do it here. I don't know if anyone's still tuning in or anyone who actually participated in the event, but just for record keeping sake. So we have 15 players, top 2 get them. So we have 3 to 15. And we'll not do it yet. So the winner, or whoever gets this number, will receive the random deck box. So we had 15 players. So first, second, and 1 random participant who played all the games. I think we had 1 player drop. So we might have to see about that one. But so I'll just run the crank here. I'll turn away and hit it 5 times, and that'll determine the deck box. There's other random prizes, but I'll just do them offline because I can get a little tedious. Like the some of the stickers, we'll go to random people. The poker chips, maybe I'll do like the middle of the pack for those. We got a couple posters, couple keychains go to 3rd and 4th place. Other type of keychains going to go to random people, so I'll determine those. So a few random prizes. So I'll do that, and I told everybody that I'll post on the forums. But the deck box, I think, is the one that people are waiting for. So consider this my my public randomization of it. So, all right, I'm clicking the thing. I'm looking away. I'm going to count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so number 3. So it incidentally is going to be number 3, Heisenberg. So Heisenberg will win the box, the random box. So good for him. I'll let him know. And so all right, that's all I have. Thanks for tuning in for the announcements, obviously for the actual game. We have the winner now for event 2, so we might not have retro of league streams, or maybe, you know what I do? I ask for people if they have any interesting games to submit. So if you're in the league and you have some interesting games, feel free to send them over to marketing@starwarsccg.org, and either I or someone else from the stream team will cast the game using the replay function. And that'll be fun, because I think people really like watching these old school formats and games, and maybe they learn something or see something different or learn a new tactic within the game. So, we'll do that like we have. All right, thanks everyone for tuning in. May the force be with you. Take care.